So, today, welcome to Linux as simple as possible. We're going to do a highlight today over the ls command, which you are probably almost all familiar with, but we're going to look at some useful options and some interesting options as well that you can use with the ls command. So let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, first, for those of you who might not know, the ls command in Linux stands for list directory contents. It's basically how we traverse the Linux directory, the Linux file system. It's just like dir in Windows. For those of you who don't know, this is just a shell command way of double-clicking a file or folder, actually more specifically double-clicking a folder and opening it up. And we're going to go over a lot of options for doing that. So first off, the most basic option here is the ls command by itself. So let's move into the opt directory. And so if we want to see the contents of the opt directory, we would just simply type ls. And there you see up on the screen, it shows me the contents of the opt directory. Now, let's say we do not want to change directories. We want to remain in the opt folder, but we want to go and take a peek at what is in the etc folder or directory. So we would just type ls/etc, and you can see on the screen there, it just pops up the contents of the etc directory, but you can also see that we have remained within the opt directory. So we just taken a peek at what's in the etc directory and without changing directory. Now, let's say we want to get more specific and maybe we want to see what's in the Wireshark folder. So while still remaining in the opt directory, we type ls etc Wireshark. And there's one file in there, init.lua. So you can see here, we have remained in the opt directory. We just took a peek at what is in the etc folder and what is in the Wireshark folder specifically. Okay, everybody's familiar with that for the most part. Let's see what's next. Let's go ls-a, which A stands for all, and it lists hidden files in the current directory. So let's swap back over. Okay, ls-a. Okay, now you see here that we have this dot and this dot dot. So if we just do ls, you can see that it pops up the row of the contents of the opt directory, but it doesn't have the dot directory. So ls-a. Now, for those of you who don't know, anything starting with a dot, these two dots are hidden directories. And then you can have files that start with dot as well, and those will be hidden. And the purpose of having files and folders that are hidden is, if a sysadmin has configuration files that he does not want to be accessible to the standard user, he doesn't even want the standard user being able to view those files or folders, they'll often hide them just out of sight, out of mind for the standard user. Also, I mean, from the security world, probably, I guess a hacker could hide their file, making it hidden by starting it with dot. That's kind of a very amateur way of hiding files, but it's possible. Not all hackers are great at what they do. So let's go on to the next one. ls-l. Okay, this is my favorite one. This is the one that I use the most often. Now you see here that we have the same files and folders that pop up, but now we have all these columns of information along with it. So let's talk about what these columns mean. So first off, you can tell if a item within the directory is a file or a folder based upon the presence of this D or this dash. If it's a D, you see a D here, that means that Cribble right here is a directory. You see another D here, that means opt is a directory. We have an opt under opt. Isn't that kind of funny? But if you see a dash here, that means that this is a file. So this is a tar file right here. So again, presence of the D means this is a directory. Presence of dash means that this is a file. Now, it's pretty easy to see in this particular video that this is a directory and this is a file because directories are blue and files are red. But oftentimes when you SSH into a server, the shell will be in black and white. So you won't be able to see what is directories and what is files just based off of the color, because there isn't any color in that case. So sometimes you can look over here to see if it's a directory or a folder. Okay, next. This, starting with this R here, these are file or folder permissions. That's outside of the scope of this video, but just know that these R, W, X, and so on are permissions. We can do another video another time on permissions. Because with Linux, permissions they can get kind of hairy unless you are experienced with them. Now here, this next column, this is the number of links to the directory or the file. So this one has 11, this one has 1, this one has 3. Again, outside of the scope of the video, but just know that these are the number of links to the file or the directory. Next, next column, we have the owner here, which is root. Next here, we have the group ownership, which is root as well. So owner and group. And then here we have the size of the directory or file in bytes. Now, you see here that these directories are 4096, 4096, 4096. What that is Linux will automatically, for directories, it'll automatically assign the size of 4096 bytes. So that's just default. So that doesn't mean that necessarily everything in there adds up to 4096. It's just default. In this particular case, there's probably less in here than 4096, but that's, outside the scope of this video. So next column, we have the last time the directory or the folder, the directory or the file was touched. So you can see this one was June 24th at 12:59. This one was June 3rd of 2020, so that's kind of old. This one is September 24th of 2021. And then the next column, we have the directory name and the file names. So those are the columns. Now let's see what else we have here. What are we going to talk about next? Okay, LS-F, list contents append indicator. So not quite sure what F stands for, but basically it depends an indicator. I'll show you what that is right here. So, and it has to be an uppercase F, because lowercase f, it doesn't know what you're talking about. Linux is very case sensitive. Okay, so ls-f, so standard ls just looks like that. ls-f. All it does is it appends these forward slashes to directories. And this is a quick way of telling that these are directories, because you see the forward slash at the end. And these are files. These tar files are obviously files because there's no forward slash. Okay, next we have ls-format with various options. So let's go into that. ls-format, commas. So what does that do? So in between directories and files, it simply adds a comma. So standard ls, and then we have ls-format commas. So not very useful, but it's interesting. Next one, ls-format single column. So it just takes all of your directories and files and places them in a single column instead of one row like we see here. It just sticks them in a single column. This is kind of the long way of doing it. I'll show you later in the video the shorthand way of doing this. If you really want to put everything in a single column, I would not suggest that you use ls -- format single dash column. It's too long. Unless you're trying to impress your friends with your Linux knowledge, just use the shorthand we'll talk about later. Okay, next, ls -- group directories first. This basically does what it says. It just puts the directories before the files. So the 3 directories under opt are Cribble, opt, and Splunk. So it groups those together, and then it groups the files together afterwards. That's all it does. Kind of interesting. LS-LH we have next. H stands for human readable. Long list of contents, make sizes human readable. This one is really helpful. I use it a lot on the daily. So if we do ls-l, we see the file or directory sizes in bytes. Well, I don't want to sit here and read, let's see, 81,673,491 bytes. I don't want to do that. I don't have time for that. I just want to see what the size is really quick. So I'll do ls-lh, and instead of telling me Cribble is 4096, it'll just say, hey, it's 4 kilobytes. Instead of saying this is 81,673,491 bytes, ls-lh just says, hey, 78 megabytes, man. Easy. Just find it and move on. Okay, next we have ls-q, list contents. Q stands for quotes. And this is how you list contents and you show entries in double quotes. Not necessarily super useful, but it's kind of interesting. ls-q. Let's see if the lowercase works. Nope, lowercase doesn't work. We'll go uppercase. And all this does is it just takes all the directories and folders and puts them in double quotes. So again, not super useful, but kind of interesting. If you want to display it that way, that's cool. That's a cool thing about Linux is you can do so many, customizable things with it. Okay, ls-r. This is a really useful one. R stands for recursive. List subdirectories recursively. So if we go, now those of you who are familiar with the tree command, this is basically like the tree command. So if we go ls-r, look at all that. Oh my gosh, it's listing so much for us. Okay, so how do we read this? Because there's a lot of information here. So how we read this is basically if you see a colon here, that means what follows is within the directory. So under Splunk bar spool, we have the directories dermon cache and Splunk. And then you can see here, recursively, it's listing out the contents of dermon cache and Splunk. So colon here, this means that under Splunk bar spool dermon cache, there's nothing under there. And the same with Splunk bar spool Splunk. There's no contents underneath there either. So again, list everything recursively just shows you, recursively absolutely everything that is within that folder. Okay, next we have ls-t. T stands for time. List results by time, newest first. So if we go ls-l, we'll see that the last file that was touched, or the latest change that was made to any directory or file underneath this folder was Cribble. So if we go ls-t, it places Cribble first because that was the last one that was changed. And then we can see here on the same day, 20 minutes earlier, the Splunk directory was messed with. And that's the second newest. So it places the second newest. ls-t places the second newest directory here. So that's all it is. Just lining it up by when it was last modified, be it a directory or a file. Okay, ls-x, list contents alphabetically and by type. I couldn't find out what the X really stood for, but the point is it lists everything alphabetically. So we go ls-x. All right, so we can see here the directories are squished together here and presented in alphabetical order. And then the files here are squished together and presented in alphabetical order. Now, this might not be useful or really look that interesting here because there's so few directories and files within here. But if you have a folder with like 100 different files in it and you're looking for one specifically, or you have 50 directories, 50 files, and you're looking for one specifically, you can just do ls-x and you can alphabetically look through the directories or alphabetically look through the files if you want. So just a different way of presenting it. Might make it easier for you to see. Okay, next we have ls-1. One meaning one per line. List one result per line. This is going to be the shorthand version of format single column. So again, standard ls looks like that. Everything in one row, or in this case, it's in one row. If we do ls-1, it just puts everything in a single column. And if you're used to going back and forth between Windows operating system and the Linux operating system, maybe you're so used to reading everything in a single column that it makes it easier for you. Once in a while, I'll do ls-1 at my job, just if I want to look at everything really quick and I don't want to look at it this way, because I started out my computer career with the Windows OS. So that's what I'm kind of used to seeing. Okay, so next, what do we have next? ls-help and ls-version. So the help command is really useful. Like, let's say you don't want to reference this video, or you just want to take a quick peek at your options for the ls command. You can do ls-help, and it'll bring up all this information about the ls command. Like see here, it says -G, group directories first. We went over that. ls-A stands for all. Do not ignore entries starting with dot. And then it says here the usage. It shows you, hey, the way you type this command is ls, then option, and then you can, specify a file or folder or whatever. Okay, so that's the help command. Remember, that's ls-help. And finally, we have ls-version. And all this is it shows you the version of ls that you are using. Like every other tool in Linux, there's multiple versions for the tools. So if you just want to take a quick peek at what version of ls you're utilizing, you can just do ls-version. Okay, so if you like this handy dandy reference sheet I'm using here, I'll make this available via Google Drive with a link in the description. I will put a SHA-256 hash on it within the file name if you want to hash it and make sure that you are getting this specific spreadsheet that I'm showing you here. And yeah, other than that, thanks for watching. Have a good day.